All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Easy Spotlight podcast. Today, my guest is Mr. Jared Hendryx, former collegiate basketball player, now gone on to do his own thing and starting up the next play. And, working in the pharma sales world, kind of similar to me, a lot of different things. But anyway, Jared, how are you doing today?
Can't complain, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Been looking forward to having this conversation and sharing a little bit of my experience and then gaining some more insight on you and the Easy community.
I appreciate that. I think we've got a lot of crossover from uh, similar spaces in that we both play sport. We both went to Queens. We both kind of took a similar path. We left Queens, and honestly, from what I'm researching of you, had similar mindsets in the way we should be approaching life and go forward. But I just want to kind of start first by laying the foundation and understanding your growing up in sport, growing up in basketball, and kind of what your intentions were as were moving forward to college to start off.
Gotcha. So, always played since I was young. Was always tall. I didn't have like a random growth spurt like some people do later on. So I was pretty good at it early on. But I didn't start taking basketball seriously until I would say after I tore my MCL my sophomore year in high school. Um, Went through that road to recovery, and then I kind of realized like this is going to be how I'm going to go to school or get to college, that next level. Was fortunate enough to get an offer for a scholarship to Queen's University, as you just mentioned. Got there and realized it was a completely different world. The talent level is just crazy, even at the Division II level that they were at the time while I was there. Just a completely different world. And then I started to kind of realize, I have a chance to go play, but I don't know what that's going to really look like from definitely not an NBA standpoint. But even if I go play in Europe somewhere, I don't know if I would be making the kind of money I would want to be making to play professionally at that level. So as I'm traversing through my college careers, it's coming to a close. I always knew I didn't want to play ball really afterwards, but I wasn't really focused on what my actual opportunities could be after school. Um, as athletes, you can kind of get that tunnel vision because you're so focused on your craft. It's such a big part of your identity. You spend so many hours on it. And then the time that you have left over, unfortunately, a lot of us fall into that trap of just wanting to chill, recover, hang out, still have somewhat of a college life or social life. So that was kind of where I fell during my time in college. And I'm kind of interested to hear what your experience was like being an athlete, how you got to Queens, and if you shared any of those similar thought processes.
Yeah, I want to get into a little bit of you explaining as well your process before. So for me, coming from England and coming to thing, I honestly didn't know what college sports was until probably the year before came to America, because you don't have a system in university where university sports is as big as it is here. Like, this is
Right.
the path to professional, right? You have to go to college, basketball play 1 year, American football play 2 years. That's not a thing. In England, if you're playing soccer, if you're on that trajectory, honestly, if you're not kind of breaking into the pro scene at 16 years old, you're going to have a very different path of kind of trying to work up the semi-professional level straight away. So that professional kind of world comes at you way earlier. And so for me, my experience was, you know, I honestly probably wouldn't have gone to university, if I'm being completely honest, if it wasn't for sports. I was thinking in England, the system's also different in that university, you have to choose what you're going to do straight away. There's no case of going to university and then, oh, here's 4 years, you take all these electives, English 101, etc., etc. You say, no, I'm going to do business. This is a 3 year course. And at that time, at 17, I was like, I am I'm not ready to make a decision. I don't know what I want to do with my life. So then the opportunity came. Say, hey, there's America, you play football every day. The weather's way better, you know, and you can still kind of pursue those decisions, make your decision later, decide if you want to continue playing football. And so that's what kind of led me there. For you in high school, what was the kind of pressure? Did you realize this is the path for me to get to university? Is this the path for me to get to continue playing basketball? Where was your mind kind of at?
So, with my mom being the first person in my family to attend college, she always she was like, basketball is going to be your way to get there. Like, she was always big on academics as well, but I wasn't a bad student, but I wasn't a stellar student either. To be 100% transparent, very smart, but I just never really liked school that much, or like formal education. Um, so for me, it was just my way to get to follow that traditional standard in America. And I'm not sure if it's similar in England, that you just go straight from high school to college. I feel like our generation, it was very much the social standard to do so. And if you didn't, you were kind of seen to be off track. All right. When in hindsight, you never know what trajectory somebody's going to take to get to whatever they consider to be success. But guidance counselors, teachers, parents are all pressuring us to go to college, even if you don't know what you want to do. But unfortunately, I did go into college with the mindset of thinking I had to know what my major or my field of study was going to be. So I went in as a business major. My freshman year, took my first couple of math classes, and it was terrible. I got my first test back, and I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." Actually, I'll be completely transparent. I'll share the number. It was like a 40, I got like a 40 on the test, and so I'm studying. I'm thinking, I'm like, I could fix it. Like, it's still early. I can fix this. I go to office hours, studying with one of my teammates who's really good at the class. I'm feeling confident. Get my next text back is not much better. So I'm like, okay, I gotta figure something out. So, and I don't want to go too far on that, but yeah, like the mindset for me was basketball was going to be my primary vehicle to a successful life, and I wanted to use it, or I was told to use it, however, or like people, I don't know if this is a saying there, but it's like, use the sport, don't let it use you. That's what people say when you're growing up. And going from high school to college was definitely like almost mandatory for me, at least from my mom. Um, and the process throughout college was very eye opening. Like I said, I went in as a business major. Around my sophomore year, I realized that wasn't going to get me done in 4 years. So I had to switch to a communications major, which I found more interesting. I got into video production, new media design, things of that nature. And that I've always been more creative. I used to draw a lot in school, and when I was younger. And I kind of think that aligned more with my natural aptitude. But with communication being such a broad area of study, I think in hindsight, I should have taken more time to really narrow down and niche down where I wanted to go with that. I kind of kept it at a very high level and was touching on a little bit of everything instead of defining what I really wanted to do. So that was kind of my process.
It's easy to kind of say in hindsight, right? Like, I have so many things in college that were like, oh, if in hindsight I did this. If I'd be completely honest, today I'm still trying to figure out what is the correct path and where I'm going to go. So for me to kind of say that, oh, back then I should have had it figured out, it's a little bit in, a false prophet. I don't know what the correct word is
I get it
exactly,
for
but
sure.
I want to go back to your point on you in college and you being a student that was you trying to figure it out. And I think this is a point a lot of people miss, especially with student athletes, is that because of that pressure, firstly, to kind of go to college, especially in America, same in England, of this is the traditional path that everybody should follow.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost a kind of neglect to the fact of how much sport is playing into your life and the focus that is taking through. And I've seen so many times of people, me myself, like I said, I wasn't even going to go to university, and university wasn't my interest. Like, school has never been my interest either, but there's always a way of getting it done. And I think that kind of comes from an athlete mindset of, you know what it takes to be in a team, you know what it is to win, to achieve. And so one way or another, you're going to figure out and get it done. But that is not your path, because that's not the identity people are seeing you. They know you as Jared the basketballer, Ryan the footballer. and that is what's consuming you and taking your kind of attention. So for you, when you're, kind of shifting, and I was reading on some of your other pieces, and you're like deciding going to continue play basketball after college may not be for me. How did you, for yourself, start to like accept I'm no longer going to be Jared the basketballer?
Mhm.
Like, what was that process for you, and how did you start to reframe who you were going to be moving forward?
I think that process was very delicate, and I think it's more so, or I'll speak to myself personally. My process was, I always kind of wanted to remove the basketball identity from my name. Like I used to intentionally refrain from posting a lot of basketball pictures, always talking about basketball or like leaning on my height, because I always wanted people to see me for, being Jared. But unfortunately, being 6'8", it comes with the territory. Like I was at the flea market yesterday and I probably got stopped like 4 times. So that, as much as I have that internally, it's projected on me as well. So as I'm moving out of college, um, everybody expects everybody to go play professionally. For some reason, they think just because you were the best player in their high school area, we're all supposed to make it to the pros. But 2% of people go, and I think I had to realize just because you don't play professionally, that doesn't mean you're a bad basketball player, or you're a bad soccer player, or you're a bad American football player. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. So that process was like, you go back, like you were saying, your athletics takes up so much of your time. When you're done with college, I moved back home. I'm working. My first job out of college was a window cleaning job, and they're like, "Yo, weren't you just playing college basketball? Why are you here with us almost?" So now, as I'm trying to remove myself and get my life started again, those external projections, it's just a constant push and pull of me trying to internally validate myself and process those emotions while allowing, or not really allowing, but dealing with those external projections. So it's kind of, I don't know that there's a exact process that I could say that I went through, but I think over the last, I graduated 2017, the last 7 years, the first 4 were just understanding really what to do with all the free time um, that came with no longer playing the sport, not having the structure of a schedule being from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, knowing exactly what I'm going to be doing, or being told by a coach that I need to be here, 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 um, or having a game to look forward to. So I kind of had to build and create new hobbies for sure. A new schedule. I had to take ownership of where I was using my time. Um, Finding ways to connect with people outside of sports, that was a big challenge for sure. Because you kind of have an innate group of people when you're on a team. Like you could be the worst social, or have the worst social anxiety. You could have the worst relationship building skills, but you at least have a group of people you're going to be around with the sport. But as you graduate and move on from that, it can be kind of isolating at times, depending on the person. So,
Definitely. I think for me, when I was in junior year, it was the same, in kind of process was probably the wrong way to ask that question before, but kind of mindset, because I did the same thing in terms of my junior year. I was very intentional in saying, I don't want to be Ryan, the football. I don't want to be just known for football. I'm like, I am creative too. Like, see me as creative person. And I think it goes back to kind of that like high school, because those people who you've moved away from, so they now only see you through social media. They only see the posts that you put when you're playing. And, every time you go home, they're like, have you made it yet? Have you, where's the next step? And so maybe it's just like kind of the mindset you're starting to shift yourself in. And also for international students, like I remember being just like, do I want to continue? My path would have been either try and play football in America, which had never interested me anyway, after, or go back to England, and it would be a slow climb. I just knew it would kind of be a slow climb, and I was like, I just don't have. That's just not what I want to do. I want to create different things. I want to kind of stay in America and just explore what that world is, and that means you just have to make decisions about, okay, I need visas. I can't get a visa playing football right now. I need to change. So for you, you've shifted from the mindset, okay, I'm not going to continue playing basketball. And it's funny that you say window cleaning, because my first job outside of college was selling photocopiers, like copy machines around Charlotte. It's a different thing. But let's go to the next play, and just, can you quickly explain what is the next play and what is kind of your goal concept with this organization?
So the next play is really a community for former athletes, specifically collegiate athletes, but athletes in general, to help redefine who they are as people and professionally. So it's a 2-part system where we're helping them redefine their identity, and then also sharing with them like best practices on how to move in the corporate world, or whatever type of jobs they're looking to get into, whether that be sales, medical, or healthcare, communications related things. Just giving them kind of a better or higher level look of what the process of getting a job, finding a job, and maintaining a job looks like. Because again, or actually, I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'll let you ask your next question. That's pretty much what the next play is.
It's okay. You can go on any tangent you want here. There's no playbook for how we'll do it. But I will go into, so your first step out of college. You say you're doing window cleaning. For me, when I was stepping out into college, I was very lucky, because one of the main reasons I got hired was because I was a student athlete, and the boss of whoever I was, he was an athlete years, and all his kids were student athletes. So he at least knew, and for me, it made it easier because I knew kind of what to expect from him and his expectations. But I was also going into sales, which I think is a great first step for people in the college world, because it kind of imitates performance from an athletic perspective, in that you do well, you get rewarded. You don't do well, you don't get rewarded. So what was your experience kind of going into the corporate world for the first time and transitioning from athletics to the working world?
Yeah. So again, with the window cleaning side, it kind of modeled athletics directly. We had a set schedule for the day. We get it done, you get paid. Kind of like you just said, you get it done, you get rewarded. If you don't, your check's a little shorter at the end of the week if you don't accomplish your goals or hit your metrics. And again, I had a team aspect. I was working with a group of 3 to 4 guys every day, so that it kind of felt familiar. It was outdoors. I still got to. It helped me stay in shape. Outside of school, carrying ladders, climbing roofs, things of that nature. But I always knew that had a limit to it. So as I transitioned from that, my next job was actually window sales for a short stint. Got into that, and that was very short lived, but it helped me get out of my comfort zone. I call myself a learned extrovert. I'm introverted by nature, but that was a door-to-door sales job, and it's taught me so much. I think I learned more about communication from that job than I ever did in my 4 years in college. So I'm knocking on people's doors, getting them to, or trying to get them to buy windows, and you're learning how to read people's body language. You're learning how to connect with people as you're walking up. Say they have a UNC or Duke flag in their driveway. They're not going to want to talk to me about windows until we have some connecting point. So you just kind of find these little bits of information about people before they even answer the door, and try to learn and lean on those. So that's the biggest thing that I took from that job, was just one, getting up and having the courage and the confidence to just knock on a stranger's door and deal with the yes or no at the end of it, and then the communication skills, and then moving on into where I'm now in pharma sales is a completely different um, process than the you go to work, you get your task done, and there's a direct reward. It's Your reward isn't really contingent on the input. So I could have a perfect sales pitch to a doctor. They could see every reason why they should use this medication for their patients, but we're ultimately trying to change habits over time. People have built these habits since medical school. I could do everything right, and this doctor could still never prescribe this medication. So I think the instant gratification is removed from my current position now. Like in sports, if you do something right, you're going to get a basket, you're going to get a goal, more times than not, depending on how you're playing. But with this type of sale, you don't know how things are going to go until you get your reports back. It could be 2 weeks down the line where the light bulb goes off that they should use it here, or it could be a year from now, that those 8 to 10 sales calls you made on that provider decided to tip the scale, and now they're prescribing your medication. So that's kind of the diligence and the persistence. I think, like you mentioned, with your manager hiring you, being a student athlete, we face challenges, we face adversity. We're able to persist, and kind of reach our goals regardless of how hard they may be, how hard they may seem to attain. I don't know if I phrased that right. You might want to cut that out. But no matter how hard they seem to cut it, I'm gonna just stop right there. I can't phrase that.
No, we get what you're saying. I think you learn more in 1 year of doing sales, direct sales, door to door sales, than you did in college. I think I would echo the same sentiment in that my first year was B2B sales. So I think every business in North Charlotte, I've been inside that building. And the whole message from everybody was that you are not going to get this business until you've had 8 touch points, was the kind of line. And, until you've gone there, you've met them, they know Ryan, you've built up a rapport. And for anybody coming out, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, but if you have no idea what to do next, I think sales is just such a masterclass in understanding no's, getting comfortable with no's, getting comfortable with putting yourself out there, learned extroversion. I like that. Learning how to kind of be comfortable in your skin, and where you can kind of go. For me, when I shifted from sales, and it's funny because we're working in the same world that we were talking about it before, but I'm slightly on the other side of this, and in the ad agency world, but for pharma. This was now a big corporate organization, just globally corporate, so many different departments and everything. And this is where I first started to notice, oh, these people aren't athletes. A lot of them have never worked in teams the way that we've grown up in teams our whole life. We kind of understand that dynamics, and people's intentions aren't always the same even though we are a team in this corporate world, because they've never had that kind of push or pull that for us to succeed, we all have to work together. Some of them are more, let me just collect a paycheck. I struggled with that initially because, if I'm being completely honest, I was like, this environment is so soft. Like, you're not allowed to say anything to anyone because this is like a corporate world, and you'll get HR. You can't just be like, if I'm on a football pitch, I'm saying, yo, what was that? Are you crazy? Step your game up. And also, I kind of struggled because there was no show. Like, for us as athletes, we train so we can perform on the weekend, or go out in there and show what we've just done during the week and during our whole lives, and that gratification from scoring and just seeing people winning together as a team, that was no longer there. We just show up to work Friday, we close our laptops or whatever, and we move on. What were kind of some of the struggles that you experienced or you noticed that other people experience and through next play as they transition from an athletic world to a more corporate world?
I can definitely share your sentiments on the softness of corporate America, especially going from being an athlete to more blue collar work and then transitioning into, I guess, white collar or corporate America. Um, like in pharma, we have great benefits, right? Like great salary. We get a free vehicle to drive. It's nice, but then like you get all that, but some of my coworkers or some of the people I've been around in different parts of the industry, they'll complain about the smallest things that don't even cross my mind to complain about. Like it's kind of a sense of entitlement that comes along with corporate America sometimes that I didn't really experience in sports or in other areas that I've worked in. Um, Another big one is just the amount of communication that, like you said, there's so many different teams and trying to streamline the processes versus, when you're on the pitch or when I'm on the court, I can, like you said, I can just turn to my right and to ask my teammate, like, what's going on here? Where did we miscommunicate here? But there's so many moving pieces in the corporate world that it's almost like the task never gets accomplished. It's like it gets, let's parking lot this till next week, and we never get back to it. And it's just a reoccurring problem that never goes away. We just put a band-aid on it for a little bit. Um, One thing I will say that I experience in some of the athletes or student athletes I work with now is understanding how to break into corporate America. Now that I'm on this side, I feel very confident in being able to, move and make different career moves, but learning how to properly write a resume, what in a way that recruiters are going to respond to it, and then just properly networking, right? When I was in college, people would tell you to network all the time, go to these events. And in my mind at the time, I thought it was more like introducing myself and somebody would give me a job. That, at least that's how it was like explained to me. But you don't want to just like, that's a one-way street. You don't just ask somebody for a job. You kind of, like you said, with the sales, you build rapport, kind of see where you align, and then see where you can add value to that person first. So I like to lead with or extend the olive branch is what I've been taught. Is to find a way to enhance somebody else's situation first, or bring something that they're looking for to the table, and you'll probably be in a better position to then ask for what you want. And that could be at Queens. Like there's a million people that cross that campus every week, and you never know who's who. It could be the VP of Bank of America. It could be another high-ranking person at Wells Fargo. Anybody. You never know where these connections could lead. So I think another thing is just properly learning how to network while you're still in college, because you'll never have a network of people like that again organically. You're going to have to craft that yourself out in the world and kind of put yourself out there. But we're living in South dorms with sleeping till 10 a.m., playing FIFA all the time. You never know who's downstairs in Dana Hall that could, put you in position to be a lot more successful 5-10 years down the road. So I think it's just understanding the opportunities that are right in front of you. So that's what I try to teach some of the younger guys, younger girls I work with.
Right. That's something I late, way too late, and I think probably we all do slightly, but I don't think it was until the end of my senior year, and I was like, I have not realized the resources I have on my fingertips right here, whether it's people or even just things. I was like getting more into, videos and stuff. I was like, we have a full suite communications department. I mean, I did business, but it's there. I could go and use these MacBooks. I can go and get these cameras. I can go and learn from people. There's professors who, if I knocked on the door and said, "Can you teach me how to do this thing?" They would do it for me. And there's so many resources, it's so many different ways in that university environment. As you said, you're never going to be able to just have when you leave the world. You're going to have to go away and kind of do what we're doing a little bit, create your community back up so you can have that. In terms of teaching though, and your point of coming out of college, I think I've seen that a lot, and we might be slightly conditioned ourselves because we've been in the corporate world for a little bit now, that we know the lingo, we know how to kind of talk to these people, we know how to kind of see a resume, even just send an email. And some friends that I've helped in the past from kind of thing, I look at their resume and I'm like, and it's not to their detriment because they've just not had that experience. So what you're doing is unbelievable, because if they've never seen any corporate world or what a corporate resume should look like, they don't know. So you just putting like your basketball stats or football stats. Why should someone hire you to be in a corporate environment? It's kind of funny, but without knowing that, how are you going to do? So you offer one-to-one coaching, you offer a kind of community, and you offer a bunch of different resources to help people kind of bridge that gap. What do you think is I know you do different things, but what would you think is the number one first step for an athlete coming out of college or just coming out of anywhere to starting to build up their working world resume, should I say?
I think kind of to echo what you just said, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, if you're not exposed to certain things, you can't know to do better. So I think if there was a first step, I would say is to actively search for a mentor. And it doesn't have to be, like a situation like mine where it's a one-to-one coaching, or it could be anybody. Like, but I think sometimes, as you just mentioned, like, your college professors would be so willing to help you do something. Like, people are a lot more willing to help you when you ask, or when they see that you're like trying to put yourself in a better position and you're humble enough, you have the humility to ask for help. As athletes, at least I'll speak for myself, we can be very proud people, and allowing yourself to be new or not as good at something that you're taking on definitely takes a hit to your ego, right? You have to be willing to be a rookie. You have to be willing to be that new freshman in a different, you're in a different space now. So just the willingness to stay curious and learn from somebody that may, or that does know more than you in a new area. I think that's the number one step, is just being willing to ask and being willing to learn and just be a sponge. And then I know you kind of spoke on the resume things. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned since being in the more corporate world is, instead of listing what you've done on a resume, that's what my old resume looked like. When I was a window cleaner, it was clean, pressure washed, and did like exterior services. It was just a list of my job requirements, or what I did. As I've transferred to the corporate world, I've realized you're supposed to highlight and metricize the value or impact that you can bring to a situation. So let's say, again, for window cleaning, I could say, instead of saying I did X, Y, and Z, I could say I cleaned windows at this rate or this efficiency while maintaining a 5-star customer rating. That verbiage it shows a lot more versus just listing what I did. So I think taking a step back and just showing how you can translate impact to your potential employer, your potential situation, would be that follow-up step, resume wise, for student athletes, is just showing a little bit more of the level of what you did versus just what you did.
Showing your value, right? I think that point is huge, and I think everybody's athletic college resume in some form, whether it happens straight away or later, is going to go through that, from you just listing what you did to listing the value you can have. I think that especially is what I see in my job career world, is that if you just list what you did, no one cares. To be
Yeah.
quite frank, like let them know what value you have added to the situation you have been, regardless of what it is, whether it's managing people, managing budgets, etc., etc. But you mentioning ego there, I think, is something that's probably overlooked too quickly,
Oh
and
yeah.
especially for athletes specifically. I myself will admit that was a hurdle for me. Right, I've come into a world where I know I'm the man when it comes to being on the football pitch. And so all of a sudden, where I may have this ego of who I am in this world, I have to understand I'm no longer in my world anymore. And so for somebody to just think that you're going to have this or you're going to know that this thing, it ain't going to work. You have to really humble yourself, become the student. And I think your advice of kind of finding a mentor, someone to kind of guide you through that step, is going to propel you so much faster. So focusing on the next play and the future a little bit, you own the next play. What is your next play as you move forward?
So for me, I want to move into actually being a recruiting service for student athletes. So, helping employers and employees bridge the gap, because there's so many jobs out right now. I know finding a job right now is very tough, and I'm not going to minimize that, but there are a lot of opportunities there. But the unfortunate part of that is that there's so many underqualified candidates, and I think a lot of it is due to, again, the lack of exposure, lack of mentorship. Um, so kind of on the student athlete side or employee side, helping them understand what employers are looking for, what certifications or what skill sets they need to work on prior to trying to land that six-figure job or wherever their aspirations are. And then on the employer side, helping them find talent. That's the hardest thing in the corporate world, is finding and retaining talent. Um, and they love student athletes, so that I think there's a value bridge for both of those parties, and I want to be a part of that, and help people find different opportunities, and help is more. I mean, my allegiance is more so to the student athletes. I love helping people change their lives, change their situations. I was fortunate enough to have a mentor that helped me change my situation, so it would only be right for me to continue to pass that down the line in whatever capacity I can. And I hope to do it at a large scale. Um, so that's my passion. That's my next play, and that's what I'm looking forward to do with the next play.
That's awesome. I'm sure you will, because everything you're putting out there and who you are and the way you speak, I think people are going to learn a lot from you. So if they want to kind of, firstly, you've got an amazing website in the content that you put out before. Where can they find your stuff and find you into the future?
You can find me on Instagram at the next play. That's THENXTPLAY, and at Jared R Hendryx on Instagram as well, and also at thenextplay.com.
Amazing. I appreciate you coming on today. I will link everything, as always, in the website and below this podcast. And we'll have to do this again, because I feel like this conversation could go on for 2 hours just about athletes, corporate world. There's so many intersections of this. But thank you so much for coming on today, River.